traditional assessments don't work very well. We can't test their knowledge right now because they can just look things up, and it's very, very difficult to proctor that properly. So instead, by getting students to engage well and in different ways, we get a more accurate assessment of learning than trying to do the traditional way of learning just online. Okay, I just got a few more people in here. So we're going to be talking about this stuff today. I've spent a little bit of time researching this and coming up with ideas and even trying different things in class. I'm looking forward to sharing this stuff with you guys. To start today, I would like to get some responses from people. I have no idea how this is going to go, but I'm looking forward to this. So take a moment, menti.com, use the code 576852 or 72 and 3. I can read. And then answer the question. It's a word cloud. What 3 words or phrases immediately come to mind when you think of Zoom classes? I'll give people a little bit of time to do that. I've also put a link to Menti in the chat, so you can just click that if that's easier for you. Click the link and then put in the code. Just what 3 words first come to mind, or which words kind of would you like to describe how these Zoom classes are going for everybody? Because I'm sure we're all having very different experiences and maybe some very similar experiences. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh, I'm excited. This is going to be fun to share. I'm at 17 people so far of a meeting of 43. I'll wait a little bit more time and then I'll screen share. I'm 26. Interesting. Let's go like 4 more, and I'll share. And we'll probably get a few more in. We're almost at 36. Two more? Can we get 2 more? 1 more? I'll call it. Hey, there we go. Okay. I'm sure there's going to be a couple more people that bring this in, but I want to show you guys what the response was. And this is hilarious because I didn't know how this was going to go. But immediately, can anybody want to guess what the first word was that popped up and went big? Because if your answer was black boxes, you're absolutely right. So right off the bat, black boxes, where is it? It actually got smaller, went up first, and it was black screens, black screen, boring. And this is kind of the experience that so many teachers seem to be just having right now, where there are good things I'm seeing, fabulous, better than ever I saw pop up. So it's like there's a lot of individual experiences, but the biggest ones, the most universal, are these: boring, blank screens, challenging, unengaging, lonely, silence, frustrating, challenging. I think I said that. Tough. And this isn't what teaching really should be. It's tough. So we can see that this is an issue, and we can see that a lot of us are struggling with this. Today, I just want to try and help out with this. There are some ways you can deal with it, and there's hope, and I promise that. So let's kind of address this and see what the issue is and how we can fix it. The second question I want to ask people is a little bit of a survey, and it is, The next question, about what percentage of students on average do you think engages in discussion during a synchronous class of yours? 0 to 20%, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, or 81 to 100? Let's see where everybody's at.
I think that one's hard because for me, it might depend on what we're talking about. Because
Totally.
if it's the introductory stuff, yeah, we can start talking. But as soon as we talk about grades or schoolwork, they all go quiet.
I don't know. I would say split the difference then. That's true though. You ever find that, actually I'll come back to that. Oh, I can't see the chat now. Depends on the lesson. Yeah, I would agree. And that's why we're going for average. This isn't going to be perfect data. It's very approximate and vague. All right. So, but what we do see is that there's the trend that it's about 0 to 20% seems to be the most common answer here. And there are some trending up here. There's even someone that's knocking it out of the park. But student engagement is a lot lower than what it traditionally has been. We know that student engagement is important. If not for the students always, it's at least important for us to make it feel like we know what we're doing and to feel like we're teaching people and not teaching names and black boxes. So that's kind of our thing today. Okay. So that was the second question. So today's goals, I have two big goals that I really want to be able to get to by the end of the day. First off, I want us to try to rethink how we approach online synchronous teaching. The first kind of half of this is geared towards that, so we can have a new perspective on it. And then secondly, and this is a little bit more concrete of a goal, I'm hoping that everyone by the end of this has at least one strategy that they want to try online that will encourage participation in Zoom. Well, it sounds like we're going to be able to meet again on December 2nd. So my goal is that everyone has at least one they can walk away with, and we can come back and see how people did and grow from here. Okay, so the current problem right now, originally when we were starting distance learning, we were told that these Zoom sessions were essentially just going to be virtual classes where we would be there with a camera, students would be there with cameras, some would have screens on. We knew that some wouldn't, but we were trying to encourage people to, and then we could just kind of talk back and forth and it would get figured out. Instead, it looks a lot more like this. It's one camera on, which is typically the presenter, and a lot of black boxes. So the question for this is, how do we continue to teach naturally in what's such an awkward environment? It's weird teaching and not even be able to see smiles or frowns, or you can't even tell if people are zoned out or not. It makes it difficult. So how can we teach with that way? Now, what's funny is that if some of us remember, Annie sent out kind of a survey earlier this week, or maybe it was at the end of last week, for yearbook. And it was asking, students what words they hate most when it comes to distance learning and to the pandemic specifically. It was kind of fun talking about that, but there was a word that came up that wasn't on the list that one of my classes shared that they hated, and it was unprecedented times. They were tired of hearing it, like, oh, this is the new time, we're trying new things, and they were just kind of burnt out from that word specifically. I thought that was funny because I've realized that in some ways, this time is not as unprecedented as it seems. So let me explain. What we're doing in these classes, they're called synchronous lessons or Zoom classes or live sessions, but in reality, these are all actually have a much more universal name, and it's called live streaming. And live streaming is something that's been happening for years to an immense amount of success, like way more than we could imagine. So let me explain what I'm talking about. So when live streaming, when we're talking about that, we're referring to the broadcasting of media in real time. Like right now, I'm recording it, and but I'm also broadcasting it. This is live streaming, what I'm doing at this moment. Many of the most successful versions of these platforms mimic the exact same format that we have in class. It's a video of a presenter. You should be able to maybe see me on your screen. The option to share a screen, which is what we're doing right now. And then there's a chat option for audience members. In fact, we actually have more than most of these platforms because other people have their screens on and they can talk through a microphone, or they can, even show facial expressions. Most of them only have a chat option, and that's it. But just despite that, it's still the amount of money in it and the way that people are focusing on it and the amount of growth it's had in the past decade is mind-blowing. So Twitch.tv is one of the most popular ones. Now, bear with me for a moment, because in 2014, well, it was started years ago for video games, and that was it. And in 2014, it was purchased by Amazon for nearly $1 billion, for $970 million. And since then, it's continued to grow. And all it is it's a presenter with a screen that's shared and chat. And that's all it is. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry at this point. And doing this has become a full-time occupation. Here's what it looks like. It's a presenter with a screen that's being shared and the audience chat. That's it. But within this model, these people create communities and cultures, and people develop relationships, and people tune into these people all the time. And it started off primarily for video games, but it's blowing up from there. Now it's about music. It's people creating art, and people just watch somebody paint. And by and large, it's just becoming different people presenting their expertise on a topic, and people just engage, and they do nothing other than chat. We can see, for example, here in the chat, how many people are typing and just how popular it is. People are engaged there. We can find success in a similar format. Now, I'm definitely not saying that we need to become streamers, but there are some similarities that are worth pointing out, and we can try and emphasize those. So the statistics, when I was doing some research about this, I was wondering, is it true? Like, is this something that we could actually kind of go for? And here's what I found. So as of 2014, Twitch.tv alone, just one website, had 100 million users. And these users were averaging 106 minutes of it per day, which is just short of 2 Zoom classes. Okay. By 2019, it had grown to 143 million viewers, but that was also with more and more platforms rising up to compete with that website. Here are all of the, or at least a lot of, it's not even all of them, of platforms that are doing the exact same thing for views and for money because it's so successful. YouTube Live, Facebook, Reddit, new one from Microsoft, something called Periscope, Vimeo, YouNow, and there's even more of them. It's insane. And this is the one that's very telling to me personally, because for us, it's important because younger audiences are the ones that are engaging in it. Roughly 53% of 13 to 17-year-olds watch live streaming videos on social media. And some of these people have been watching it for years. This became popular, we could say, if it became popular when Amazon bought it, we'll say 2014. That was over half a decade ago. Some of our kids might be engaging this stuff for over half a decade already. The truth is that many of our students are far more familiar with this medium of teaching than we are. This might be brand new to a lot of us. To our students, they've been on these things and engaging in live streaming for over half a decade. I threw in some sources because I didn't want to get ousted on that, so don't worry, there's actually research with it. So let's talk about that. The truth is that, as I said, our students are more familiar with this. And here's 2 quotes that stood out to me about live streaming. First off, Twitch works best when streamers have small but dedicated followings, which allows for productive chats. As we know, student engagement is really important. In this case, productive chats is one of the things that makes Twitch so successful. People just being able to type in and participate socially like that. For many viewers, the appeal of live streaming is that it offers a taste of accessibility, a behind-the-scenes approach that feels more unscripted and transparent. This helps establish trust in ways that other marketing tools simply can't. This is from an article talking about how businesses should try to live stream to create brands and get popularity and reach customers. It's a much more authentic experience that so many people seem drawn to. So in summary of this, the success of these platforms is largely just because they're social. It's social media streaming. And we can build communities without seeing faces and without hearing voices. These are communities and platforms in multi-billion-dollar industries that have less tools than we do. We can make it work. Okay, so there's two big things to take away from this. First off, this shows us that it's possible to have a social community and engage class when there's only one camera on. When it's just the teacher's camera on, we can still work with that. That's okay. And secondly, since this style and this platform is already popular with what seems like about half of our students, we can shift our teaching to what works for them. And from what I've found, I've done like some polls in classes, some informal polls, and I found that the rate is about the same, where about half of students watch this stuff and half don't. But the other half that don't still just naturally engage in it like the other half does. And it's been very interesting to see. So we know it works. Maybe we could gear our practices to help the students and to reach the ones that do this stuff. Okay, so let's practice it. It's not as authentic if everybody has their videos on. So let's mimic an average class from this point on. I want you guys to turn your camera off unless you're willing to volunteer as one of those, like 1 to 5 or 2 to 6 students that we have in almost every class that keeps their cameras on, which is always encouraging because you can always have that 1 or 2 people you can look at to see if reactions. So quick sign of respect to those students. Thank you, people. In addition, maybe at this point now you're shy about your voice, but maybe the chat isn't as scary. Thank you, volunteer. Let's see, how many do we have? I got 1. Yes, that's like perfect, right? I don't know if Austin counts or not. We'll say he does. He's just in a very dark room. So let's give this a try. Pretend like you're a little bit scared to talk, and let's see if we can make this work with chat. Okay. Hang on, let me get my chat box to be visible real quick. See, it pays to be authentic. Oh, come on now. Okay. Here. There we go. Okay. So let's compare these two. Streaming and teaching, I've found, are very similar for different reasons and for a lot of the same reasons. For example, a streamer engages content about a topic, video games, art, science, whatever. We as teachers create content in academic, or create engaging in academic content about a topic. English, math, science, health, cooking, anything. Secondly, a streamer seeks to build both a community and a culture. A teacher seeks to create or to build both a community and a culture. The streamer is an expert in a topic that people are interested in and search them out for. However, teachers, we are an expert in a topic that we generate interest in. So it's kind of on us to generate that interest, but once we do, they're engaged. Now, a lot of students want something to do right now and they're engaged in it. And then notably, streamers don't have state standards required curriculum or excessive regulations put on them, but we get steady paychecks and insurance benefits. So that's kind of nice. This idea though, really this boils down to the fact that streamers and us teachers, we have a topic, we're an expert on that topic, and we provide information and knowledge about that topic through this platform. We both do the same thing. And there's some of the things I've heard about are basically just people streaming that seems to be working when I've asked students about what they like. Science, for example, one of the things that I've heard that people like the most that they've seen in classes is when science teachers do an experiment and they're able to watch it. And that's no different than what a live streamer would do. It's the same thing. So what I want to do real quick is we're going to actually watch a video of a streamer. This is a guy who's playing a video game. And I just want us to kind of look for how he engages the chat. So this guy, quick background for how this works. He's from Serbia, so English is his second language. He used to be a professional StarCraft 2 player where he literally made money by winning at a video game. He's retired from that, but now he makes a full-time living just by streaming the game and then uploading his videos to YouTube, kind of like how we stream a class and then upload it to Canvas. What he does though is that since he's an ex-professional, he's an expert in it, people tune in because first off, they like watching it, they're engaged in it, but also they ask him questions and they want to learn more and he teaches people. So we're going to watch some of how he does that and how he engages with just a chat. No videos, no microphones or anything. My challenge to you guys is, just as you're watching this, if you wanted to point out anything that you see that he does that you think is something that we could replicate, point it out. You could put it in chat just to everyone, or you could even just send it to me in a private message and I'll read it out loud and just kind of read it anonymously. Okay, so let's watch this. I'm not worried at all about the game. Don't care about the game. It's going to be a ton of jargon that makes no sense. Just like our classes might not to some students, just remember that he's engaging with the audience. We're focused on that and not about what he's talking about with this ridiculous kind of setup. Okay. So first off, he just played the game. They'll give you some background. And the game finished, and then people asked questions. So he immediately stopped and he went back to watch his replay, like we might a replay of a sports game. And he's explaining what he did and why, so people can replicate that when they go try it on their own. Oh, I need to share sound. And I'm going to optimize for sharing for video clip. I hope this works okay. Oh my gosh, can I not? Can I? Nope.
All right. So this is how you do it. I'll go through my train of thought, how to play mech in TVZ, and I think this is probably one of the best builds you can do in TVZ right now. Battlecruiser opener has been popular for super long time, and there's also a reason for that. So
all right, so real quick, I can't reach the volume control. I could adjust that in a moment, but can you guys hear him?
Yeah, you're fine. It's quiet, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, that's so annoying. I wonder if this way I could wait. Okay, so what you saw there was that he finished the game. People are asking questions, and so he immediately, just go with it. So he immediately just goes back. He even takes his headphones out like he's getting to business, and he's going to go back and explain it. Now, he spent a while explaining it, and as he's going on, he gets asked a question by somebody in the chat.
Don't forget about that. It's not needed. It's just like a bonus thing, like your little sensor towers. Casual Polish player says, do you prefer to warp BCs to Zerg bases, or just fly there and warp out? So that's actually a good question, and I feel like whenever people talk about TVZ, no one ever mentions this, so that's actually a good question. Thank you. You want to blink in. You want to teleport in. Why? Well, first things first, if you go across the map, let's say you go straight across the map, versus.
Okay, so we saw that, and he starts explaining. He goes in like a whole different lesson at that point, and that's something that we should kind of be ready to do, is adjust our efforts in what we're doing and just meet people where they want to be taught. Yeah, praises, I like that, Devin. Praises a good question, offers an explanation that might be more applicable to the entire class. And what's interesting about this is you notice that early on, let's see if I can control it. That's so annoying that it does that. What if I just did this? Ha, that was smart. Come on, man. Early on when he's talking, the chat is really popular down here. And there's a lot of people saying a lot of things. However, when he's into the explanation portion, it slows down. And it's not because people aren't engaged. In fact, I don't know if you guys can see it, but down in that bottom right, it shows that there's over 400 people watching. People are listening. That's why they're not chatting, and that's okay. Someone also pointed out that they're amazed that people would want to watch a video game, and I want to remind you that one of the biggest reasons for that, yeah, it's a video game and people enjoy it, it's their hobby, so they like it, but the social aspect is what's so alluring for the streaming. That even though they aren't on there on the video, it's that they can interact with people, talk with other people in the chat, and talk with this expert on the topic directly, and people love that. Yeah.
Like whenever people talk.
Oh, that's a lot louder. Sorry, warning.
Talk about TVZ.
So at this point, what he does is he gets an article that he hasn't read. He's going to read it with his audience, his class, essentially, and they can learn it together. And this is just him kind of authentically engaging with them and learning with them, and everybody is engaged. And if you want to look over here, you'll see the chat, just how active it is. I'll let it play.
Across the map. Versus Zerg. I have not looked at this, by the way. I saved them for you guys, even though it's 11 today. Zerg Baneling, weapon damage changed from 18 plus 70 versus light to 15 plus 20 versus light. Wasn't this something that they talked about before? What happened to it? Did they go back on it? Or am I crazy? I feel like they wanted to experiment something like this, but then they backed down on it, so I guess they're going back into it. They nerfed it from 20.
You see, he's looking at the chat. He's asking questions. He's looking at the chat. He's giving them time to respond because he's being patient with it. He's kind of waiting, and then they're responding, and he's building off of that and having a conversation without seeing any faces. So Brady asked, respond to people's comments in the chat window. Totally. A lot of students feel a lot more comfortable typing something in, and that's what they're used to with stuff like this. They are used to this. They know what streaming is. A lot of them watch it regularly. They're comfortable with it, so you respond to it. Be like, yeah, blah, 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 read the question, and then give an answer and give an explanation. Ask the audience questions about what he is reading, presents as a learner along with them. Right, it's collaboration, even though they're not together in the same room.
To 18. Wait, they're nerfing it further? They went from 20 plus 15 to 18 plus 17, and now it's 50 plus... Oh, okay, yeah. Because I remember they didn't go through it. All right. Okay, so...
All right, so they read the article, they go through it together, and now since he's the expert on the topic, he stops and he explains it from his perspective as a professional in this topic. And people listen, and they love it, and they want to hear what he has to say.
I'll tell you guys why this is. Baneling, I know this is going to sound weird, but at a pro level, Baneling is considered one of the best units, like an S tier unit. The reason for that is most units in game, when they morph from Zerg into another unit, like
and I encourage you to laugh as much as you wanted this speak because it's pretty funny.
Into Broodlord, Roach into Ravager. This is
all right, so he goes off, he explains a lot of stuff there, and now he's moving around. He's actually in the game right here. And what happens is that people are still talking about it in the chat. It's a social, it's a community group, it's a social group, it's a community, and someone actually sends him an article talking more about it. So he gets the article in the chat here.
Notes with comments from Blizzard team. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Let's look at this one. It's basically the same patch. It's just comments with what are they called? With developers' comments. Okay. What is it, a 2% popularity right now? You know what I mean? Okay, it's not 2%, but it's constantly rising. That's funny.
So just like that, and he starts goofing off, and it feels natural. Other than if you're not comfortable with video games and all that stuff, it doesn't feel really awkward at all. Was there anything else anyone noticed that maybe I didn't point out? Or like good things that he was doing? Oh, Jeff, that's awesome. Personally, Taryn.
Jack, it's Julia. I'll tell you, I don't feel comfortable with my camera off, so this is teaching me a lot. But I guess my struggle is, so when there's a conversation going on in the chat, and it feels separate from what we're talking about, because I've got some kids that like to go off on their own little tangents and things. So, where's my priority? And it's so far in that I have to scroll back to determine, like, is this on task? Do I need to address this? I value what this guy is doing. It's just tricky when you've got your objective for the day and what you want to cover, and then some random things going off in the weeds in your chat box, because apparently these kids are used to this because they're super comfortable doing this in the chat.
Totally.
So
yeah, and that's a big concern, right? Like that's kind of one of the issues of if you get students to engage and they're willing to participate and they want to talk, that's great. When students talk, they often talk about things that aren't on topic, and that's really normal for the classroom. So like that's the negative side effect of what's good with student engagement. I mean, if we want students to be quiet and to sit there in black boxes and not interact, we could absolutely do that. We could shut the chat off. We could just talk to them the whole time. But a lot of people, like from what we saw with that word cloud, people don't want that. We want students to engage. Now, how to manage that, that's classic, just classroom management now over online. And yeah, so people are saying, pointing things out about it.
Yeah.
And they're helping right now. My students have a chat going on a random subject, very kind of redirects them back. Allowing time for free chat, that's a great strategy for dealing with it. Jeff, when will this guy test on the information here? Does he have all of his other responsibilities? No. But he's just authentically engaging with them and they enjoy it. Yeah, right. So I've been thinking about that. So Kevin points out the elephant in the room, streamer audiences choose to view a given streamer, but our students are forced to come to class. And that's true. They don't choose us. They're not like, oh, I can't wait to tune into this person's stream today and see what they're talking about because I'm subscribed to them and blah, 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 blah. But right now, there's not a ton going on for them. And no, we can't expect that they're going to be as engaged as a bunch of people are here. But if we have a group of 30 people, we know that we can create a culture and we know that they want things to do right now. A lot of students are bored and they're enjoying things that are engaging and they're enjoying learning things. And a lot of them just want something to do. So creating a class that offers engagement and allows them to do things is going to be huge. Yeah, this is a topic they're interested in. If they hate your subject area, you're right. But that's just teaching in general, right? Like if they hate our classes, they hate our classes. And it's kind of on our job. It's a little bit on us to get them interested, to generate interest. The way it was put to me once was that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, but you can salt the oats and make them thirsty. We can generate interest. That's kind of what we do. And if, we're not always going to be successful, but we can really try. They might be excited to see you. Right? I know AG was great, honestly, today for me for a similar reason. Yeah, and Steve points out, thank you for that, Kendra. I appreciate hearing that. And Steve points out it's permission to stop worrying about testing. We're not worried about that. And I want to point out again, when I went to the Corwin Institute training, and it was all about assessments, it was actually mostly about just engagement. And I can talk about ways to assess things later on that aren't just like a big test. And that's kind of the strategy. What time are we at right now? 2:04? This is really good stuff though. So Julia, I kind of got a little off your question, but it's just kind of pointing some things out of staying aware of it. And sometimes off-topic chat's okay. And then if it's taking over a little bit, just kind of take a moment, maybe give them a moment to finish the topic and then redraw their attention back to what we're talking about. Remind them that the chat is most useful when people are able to use that for classroom function. And as long as it's okay, as long as it doesn't get in the way of the topic. There's some ways of maybe thinking about that. We can talk more about that too if you want.
Yeah, I definitely have kids that only use the chat for whatever reason. Like you said, they might feel most comfortable there. And something I learned very early on, it's easy to misunderstand what they're saying in the chat because it's just like a text and you don't know their tone. Right. And I actually had a statement made by a student, and I walked away from the day going, well, what did she mean by that? And I kind of let it marinate, and then I came back the next day and then it dawned on me, she wasn't trying to be snarky. It was a completely different way that she was meaning it. And I actually used it. I was really transparent with the whole class. I said, you guys, I could have easily misunderstood what she said because of this, but then I realized what she meant, and we just used it as a teaching moment because it's so easy to misunderstand them.
Totally. Especially because like when they're used to this medium, they speak a different language on it than we're used to speaking. And it just might take a little bit of time to get used to. But we'll get there. We'll come to common understanding. Another thing that nobody's pointed out that I'm kind of surprised about is the difficulty sometimes with trying to teach and look at the chat at the same time. I was something I was struggling with at first, but you just kind of get used to it. The more that people use it, the more you're trained to look at it and refer back to it. And that just takes a little bit of practice. Okay. See, right now it's blowing up. It's tough, but once you get it into a habit, it's so easy. It's so easy. Okay, so I'm going to keep going because I still have a lot to talk about. Where'd my chat go though? Oh, there it is. All right. So what can we do to accomplish this? My goal here is to show how it's possible to get people engaged. And that's what we're talking about here. It's possible to get lots of feedback. It's possible to get people to enjoy being in a community that's just streaming and chat. So how can we accomplish this? Yeah, verbally respond to the chats. That's what he did, right? He was reading. When he had a question, he wouldn't just respond to the question. He read the question out loud and then would respond to it. So the audience knew what he was responding to. And then he just naturally explained it. Instead of waiting for somebody to ask, can you explain that? He just went into it. And then the chat would die down because everybody was listening. And then we'd go back up and kind of blow back up or resume being busy, I guess, when it was ready. Yeah, I teach English. So, so here's something I wanted to point out, and it's a thought that I have. If we make cameras and microphones an expectation, they may only become an obstacle. I want that to sink in a little bit. Communities can be built entirely around a chat function. Like what we're seeing right now, there's a lot of people engaged in just discussion in the chat, and it's on this topic. In fact, there are some benefits to this format that cannot be done in the classroom. There's an irony that I've experienced where the more I've emphasized chat, and the more I'm like, hey, respond in chat, respond to this answer in chat. And I do an icebreaker question, I'm like, I add in there in the instructions, type it in chat. And the more I've been emphasizing chat, the more responses I've been getting out loud. And I think that's because, we can say it's because kids like to break rules, but it's because instead of putting pressure on them to respond out loud or on video, they know they can respond in chat and they want to respond in chat and they get used to it. And sometimes they just don't want to wait for that. And then they realize I have a microphone. This is going to be a lot easier. I'm just going to say it this time. And they almost get more responses from it like that. The private chats. I was going to talk about private chats here right now. Good and bad. There's big perks and there's also risks with it. So there are several benefits from this format of just video, stream, and then chat that I wanted to talk about. First off, if private chat is enabled, there's a huge pro to this, and it's simply that students can message the teacher with a question or issue or response without drawing any attention to themselves. Some students I found love that. They're very happy being able to just send messages to me, and I'll repeat those messages out loud if it's something good or a good question, but I won't say the student's name. I'll let them remain anonymous. Some of them started off with only private chats and now they're public, and some people just kind of like staying private at times. It's like talking to a student in the hallway, right? Yeah, except you don't have to tell them, come talk to me in the hallway. Students have no idea. The anonymous aspect of that is something that I wish we could replicate in school sometimes. The chat thread doesn't go into Zoom recording. So the more learning into the chat, the more students there. When you save and you record a chat, it actually does save the chat itself. So you can upload that with it if there's a lot of learning happening through it. That's a good question. Yeah, private chats free up students who are afraid. Text of the chat is saved. Yep, it's good to repeat the questions. So if someone asks a question in private chat, you should repeat it. By and large, I'll repeat someone's name if they ask the question out loud or like publicly, but if it's private, I won't say their name. Every once in a while I'll slip up and say their name. Usually if they said something good and I just got excited about what they said and I say it, I'm like, oh, sorry, but they haven't cared yet. That's only happened a couple of times. Also, the chat serves as a natural parking lot and questions can be addressed at any time. As I'm talking about things, I don't necessarily want to be interrupted mid-sentence, so I can just talk, I can finish an idea, and then I can go back and read the chat. Oftentimes, questions have been addressed by the time I've finished. Otherwise, though, I can go back, I can read the question, and then build off of it from there. It's so great because then students don't forget their questions. They can just ask the question, and you can get to it when it works best for you. And then also, this format allows instant access to feedback from questioning strategies such as polls, word clouds, anonymous questionnaires, and more. kind of like we saw earlier when we started this off with the Menti, word cloud, and poll, get instant feedback from everybody. And it's fun when a topic comes up and you're like, oh, okay. And you go over and you make one with, in about 1 minute, and then you send it out. And students really seem to respond to when you're just making changes to fit what they want to do. Private message, private messages are not saved. It's just going to be what's private to you or what's public for everybody. Yep, so you'll have all the private messages. So if you wanted to publish your chat and you don't want people to see who is private messaging you, you just can go through and delete them real quick. It's a little bit more work again, but so far I haven't found the need to upload the chat yet, because that's why if you repeat the questions out loud and you repeat what people are saying, they don't need to look back at the chat, and that's so important. Okay, yeah, oh yeah, real quick. Yeah, I have not worried about uploading the chat. Just repeat what people are saying in the moment, and that way you'll never have to worry about uploading a chat and real quick, altering a bunch of files. Okay. I want to bring up again, as we move on, before I give a bunch of strategies, I want to remind us how important the time to think is. Now, this is something that we should all be familiar with our teaching. At some point, we should be told that students don't come up with good answers immediately. When you ask a question in class, you're supposed to, give them about 5 seconds to answer it. Anywhere between 5 and 20 are things I've heard. 5 seconds, at least gives them time to hear and understand the question and come up with an answer. 20 seconds gives them time to hear, understand, think of how to express, and come up with a good or better idea. My screen's blurry. Huh.
I don't know if it's just mine, but that's better. I don't know what you just did, but it made it better.
Has it been blurry this whole time?
Just when you were, I think when you played with the volume, it did something.
It's nothing personal, Jack. You're still a good person.
Oh, geez, blurry screens, man. So here's what, okay. Well, then I'm not worried about it. Was it blurry during the video? Okay. So what happened there, I can tell you guys, is that when you're share screening for a video, you can click an option that says optimize screen sharing for video clip. And I think it makes it so that the video isn't as in high quality. So the video will just play through, but I'm guessing it dropped the quality of the video. Okay, so blurry beats, Battlestar. That's funny. I wonder how The Office and Michael Scott would have done with distance learning. I haven't thought about that till now. I bet he would have been terrific or terrible. So anyway, so time to think, getting distracted. It's more important in this format than it ever was before. Like, you're supposed to give time in class, in person, but this takes even more time. And it's so essential to start with that. Here are kind of all the different steps that students need to go through, and it's important to remind ourselves of this, especially if we're using the chat function. Students have to listen to the question, process what was asked, and process to come up with an answer. Consider how to express their answer. Then they need to build courage to even talk or share or type. And then especially if we're using chat, it takes time to type. So we often feel like when we ask a question and don't get responses that they just aren't engaging. But a lot of students just take time to go through this whole process. Especially if it's a difficult question, it might take a long time. I just want to remind us of that. Everything is built off of this, essentially. Okay. So here are some of the strategies that can be used to encourage chat. Some of these I took directly from Corwin Institute, some I've just kind of learned. First off, honestly, the best one for me I found to just get people talking, and sometimes once they start talking in chat, they don't really like to stop, or they feel more comfortable talking again after that, is I essentially do a digital fist of 5, and I do this probably at least twice a class every day. I just ask them to answer something 1 out of 5 in the chat. So for example, today, I might ask, how do you feel about distance learning before this meeting? 1 out of 5. I'd like to get a response from everybody, please. Let's see what you guys think. 1 being bad, like, man, I am in serious doubts about my profession. 5 being like, I've never had more fun than distance learning. Threes, 2s, 4s, got a 5. Some 2.43, 3.5 specifically, a little above neutral. Bob, somebody hero, and a pie, that's funny. And it's very easy for students to respond to, but they like it. And they get good responses. I'll do this often at the start of class. I'll just see how everybody is. How are you doing today? 1 out of 5. And it's funny because in the beginning of the week, it's 2s and 4s. And by the end of the week, it's usually 3s and 5s as they get closer to the weekend. It's kind of a fun trend to watch. But then also after we talk about a topic, I'll ask them, what's your confidence level in repeating these steps that I just did on your own? And then they'll put down numbers. And sometimes it's 4s and 5s. Sometimes it's 2s or 3s. If I'm seeing a lot of 2s or 3s, I might ask, okay, what are some questions I could answer right now to bump you up to a 4 or a 5? And then we have a good kind of improvised lesson based off of that. It also might be just at times like, because I can't see facial expressions. So this is wonderful for that. So if I ask, like, let's ask that right now. Won't have my feelings hurt. I'm asking, how valuable has this meeting felt to you so far? 1 out of 5. Because oftentimes in person, I can see people smiling. I can see people are making eye contact and engaged with it. Or I can see if they're zoning out and doing something different and writing and doing work. But we can't see that in this way. This gives me a good gauge on how much people are interested in what we're talking about. Cool. Hey, 5s, 3s, 4s. Oh, and then I also always remind them, at least in my case, you can respond privately. So like if a student doesn't understand what we're talking about, they can respond 1. I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll meet with you after or something like that. So private responses are always acceptable. All right. I encourage easy replies when engagement is low. If the chat seems slow that day, I often just kind of boil it down, start asking easier questions so that it just encourages some engagement. And once the class starts engaging, often the momentum picks up a little bit. So I might ask something like, based on what we've talked about, do you think yes or no, yes or no question? Or I'll ask them for options. Option 1, option 2, or option 3, option A, option B. If you want to get silly, you can make up different things. So like, you know, if you think this debater won the debate, type in crocodile. If you think this debater won the debate, type in alligator, go. And then we can kind of get responses there and build off of that. Waterfall chat is fantastic. I'm going to go over that in a second. It's actually one of my favorite ones to get some engagement going and start something. Basically, and we'll practice it here. It's when you have everybody type a response at the same time and hit enter at the same time. We'll show that in a moment. Generative sentences are another way to get a different form of chat response. And in the next slide, we're going to practice that just so we can see what that looks like. It's great for vocabulary acquisition. An engaging first question. We've seen that especially in the advisory groups where people are asking good questions that just get people talking. I think it was Kendra earlier was saying that she gets really high engagement early on with like an engaging first question, and then it tends to drop off. But even with that, when students get that first engagement, I find that the more that people talk at the beginning, typically there's a ratio that exists of a good number continue that talk. So if you start off with a bad introduction, less people talk throughout the day. A good one, more people tend to talk. And there's just something I've noticed with that. An interesting get to know you question is common. One thing I've done is riddles or lateral thinking puzzles, because then students have to ask several questions to try and figure it out. A lateral thinking puzzle, you know, is like a guy is dead in the middle of a field with an unopened backpack next to him. How did he die? And students have to figure that out by asking a series of yes or no questions. And oftentimes they'll do it privately so that they don't actually spoil what the answer is. And I'll just read them out loud and go along with it. And I'll tell a student when they got the answer. And that's really fun because it's a lot of back and forth. Ah, gator. And then authentic and genuine questions to get help from them is huge. That streamer that we watched for a moment was asking the audience for input on questions he was asking, and the audience was responding to it. Students like to feel like they're helping, and so asking questions where they can give us feedback and they can help through the chat is good. And for a lot of us that aren't as familiar with a format like this, giving the students the chance to be the experts when it comes to computers can be huge and helpful, and they're going to want to help us. They like to see us do well. So let's let them help us sometimes. Okay, so real quick check. Are there any of these that sound like something you'd want to try in your class? Or are there any of these that you're just not sure if you understand what they are? Generative sentences I'll go over, so don't say that one. You respond with yes. You can respond with no. You could say a specific one that you think you might want to try. The fist of 5. The waterfall chat's so cool. Yeah. The 1 through 5 is just part of my routine now. And students know it. They're used to it. They anticipate it and they participate. They really like it, honestly. It's a good way to like just get people typing. I didn't realize how many students were still engaged until I started doing that and realized how many responses I was getting from black boxes. Can we do a generative sentences demo? Yes. Okay. I'm going to move on. So let's try this. So a generative sentence is just an alternative way of getting a chat response. And this might be, this is a little bit more challenging. So that way it's not just asking a question, but you have to ask a question and have to respond in a certain format. It's a challenge and a lot of people like rising up to the challenge. So you give a word and the conditions about the word. And this is great for vocabulary. Yeah. They're all rhetorical questions. They might be, I don't know. You give them a word, you say what position in the sentence the word has to be and how long the sentence has to be, either below a certain amount of words or above it. And it's, like I said, it's great for vocabulary. So for example, let's say we're talking about science where we're talking about the cell, the cellular structure. So we'll go with cell. So I want everyone to try this. Use the word cell as the third word in a sentence of at least 6 words. Can you do that? My jail cell was very cramped. Yep. I love cells. Brandy, that's only 3 words. Jeez. I love cells very much, I do. I'm using cell in my sentence. It's funny because in the training of Corwin, I did that exact same sentence, Devin. But that tells you a lot about the student, right? The blood cell produced more cells. Call my cell, please, when this meeting is over. I love cells so much, yes. My favorite cell is blue. Shannon, that's only 5 words. My Zoom cell is killing me. I'd like to say, wait, Donald Trump cell. Put that cell in a yonder. I like that. In one cell, there's nucleus, in another, there is not one. Cool. It's fun because then everyone's finding creative ways to do it. You get the people that want to take it in the proper context and take it as far as they can, and other people that just want to respond, but trick the teacher as much as they can. And some that just want to be creative and use it in a different way that nobody was expecting. And it's really cool seeing the responses that we get. Cells are firing lots. That's funny. And it's cool. I'm getting like direct messages right now too, and some of them are pretty funny. My kids sell things on eBay. Sure. Okay. It's a good tool. It's fun to use. So I want to point something out. When I was doing a lot of research for this, they don't spell well. That's good. So when I was doing a lot of research for this, I was trying to look up just things about chat and streaming, and I actually kept coming across a lot of people that were streaming coaches, literally people that coached people how to stream and make money doing it. Like that's literally a full-time job now, and it has been for years. These aren't as unprecedented times as we think. In a lot of ways, yeah, it's unprecedented in terms of the pandemic, but in terms of how people are interacting digitally, people are years ahead of us. So here's some of the things that I saw that a lot of coaches were saying, and these are very specific strategies that they were talking about using. Streamer tips to boost chat engagement, because they recognize that if you have a dead chat, as they call it, nobody wants to watch your stream. People only watch your stream and what you have to say if the chat is engaged and people are there as a community. That's at least the streamer way. Ours is a little bit different, but we know that student engagement and student questions and talking is really important for them to learn and feel engaged and have fun in a class. So there's some similarities there. So here are the streamers and how they get student engagement, or rather get a live chat. They have one idea is a question of the day, where people come in and you ask them the question of the day. You make eye contact. This is funny because it took me way too long doing this to realize I wasn't making eye contact. Right here, this is me looking at people's faces. Hi, Julia. Hi, Devin. Hi, Tony Olive's picture. This is me staring at the camera. But in this case, if you're actually looking at me, I am now making eye contact with over 40 people. And this feels far more natural. This is what actually gets students to feel like I'm talking to them rather than looking away. When I'm actually looking at them, I'm not. When I'm looking at your cameras, I'm not. But when I'm looking at the camera itself, the thing that's recording me, it makes it look like I'm making eye contact, which boosts engagement. And that's one of the biggest things that people talk about. Yeah, I had to kind of do that too, like what you said, Devin. You put the faces directly underneath. I've done that a bit, and I'm trying not to even like look at faces. I'm just more used to black boxes now. Okay, so that's an interesting one. I know it was a joke. I thought it was a funny joke. That's why I laughed. Being passionate about what you're talking about is also really important. Being confident and authentic in what you're talking about. Being willing to be like, oh, I messed up, or to change what you're doing and just be a person on camera. That's what people want for streaming. Using humor, obviously. Asking open-ended questions to encourage discussions seems important. Learning to monologue and talk through what you're doing and to keep sharing ideas and to not just try and keep things short, and having lots of silence. Group-directed questions where you ask a question of everybody, such as, right now, can you hear, JR, my son, in the other room? I know you can't, but I've asked that before, and it's kind of fun to get sudden responses. Give your community power is one of the comments. And silence is okay. It's okay if there's not sound the whole way. If you ask a question, it's okay if there's silence because people aren't responding. That's fine. We don't need to panic. So these are streamer coaching tips for people trying to make a life as a streamer. Do any of these seem relevant to teaching? Let me ask you guys that. Kelly says all. Aaron says yes. Jessica says all of them. Trendy, Jillian, yes. I'd agree. Let's look at how these compare to what teaching strategies would be in this format. Every single one. There's a little bit of a difference. For example, question of the day is basically what we just call our icebreaker questions. We still want to make eye contact. We still want to be passionate and care about what we're talking about. We should be confident and authentic. We should use humor, asking open-ended questions to initiate discussions. We should talk through our actions. So if we're modeling like writing or how to solve an equation in front of them, we should be talking through that. Use class-directed questions. It's okay to collaborate, like that streamer that we saw where he was asking them questions and they were working together to solve something. Collaboration is wonderful. And again, silence is okay. All of these things are exactly true. And it's funny seeing that these streamer coaches aren't just coaching, people playing video games. It's also how we teach in this format. It's 2:30, by the way. Should I just keep going? Steve, do you have a... Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. It's recorded. Thank you. See, I always run out of time in my classes all the time. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's practice a waterfall, huh? Okay. So what you're going to do is I'm going to give you a question. Okay. Yeah, Yeah, so Shannon says if you need to take off for another meeting, obviously feel free to. It won't hurt my feelings too much. But gosh. So waterfall question right here, let's practice it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna actually type an answer into the chat box, but you're not allowed to hit enter yet. I'm gonna ask the question, give everyone 1 minute to type in an answer, and at the end I'll do a countdown, and then everyone hits enter at the same time. Let's give this a try. 1 minute. What is one thing you have done during a Zoom meeting that led to immediate student engagement? No, you're not supposed to hit enter. Don't hit enter. Type it in and don't hit enter. Just type it in the box and leave it sitting there. Oh, geez. I guess you have to think of a new strategy, huh? About 30 seconds. It's okay. It's just a perfect example to see that students are going to mess it up, and that's fine. Don't hit enter. Let's leave it in the chat box. Don't hit enter. Type it in, but don't press the enter button. 20 seconds, we'll say. 15. I got distracted from my counting. If I was really caring, I'd have my phone out with the timer. Okay. Finish typing what you have, and I'm going to count down from 5. When I hit 0, I want everyone to press that button. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit enter. Boom. Whew. It's like a waterfall. Actually, that was, yeah. And so this is great because it's essentially like a form of assessment. If you're asking a question about something in class, I did it for the first time with theme, where I was asking them to write a theme on something that we had read. And I tried it, and suddenly I was getting responses from students that I didn't even know if they were really watching or engaged or not. I realized how many people were watching. Nope. Okay. Almost. So, and then we can go back through and work through it. Show and tell. Excel sentence prompt. Ask for a reaction from everyone to communicate a response to a question from me. Pantomime game using waterfall. Nice. Showing pets is so popular. Kids love that. About personal experiences. Show them a shortcut in Word to draw a line. Nice. Play the game for review. Show and tell. I like that. Show and tell. I haven't really tried that yet. I might have to. Trivia. A whole class incentive in the group to solve a puzzle in a certain time frame. Collaboration is so fun, especially with puzzles. They've been loving that lately. They like to think, and I think a lot of them are just really bored. Asking a survey question about favorite food. Yeah, a lot of kind of personal things. Singing with them. Austin's game. I heard about what you did, Austin, with the Among Us presentation or whatever. Kids really like that. Demonstrating an experiment and asked for predictions. Yeah, the experiments. Science, you guys have been killing it. Discussing dress codes. Interesting. Oh, how does that go with distance learning? Is that even relevant? Maybe, I guess on camera, they still need to put clothes on. That was a silly question. Started talking when I was muted. Plenty of folks wanting to tell me I needed to adjust. That's funny. Having funny jokes. Would you rather? I like that. Begin with an engagement question. Using a random number generator to call on students in rapid fire succession. That's got to make it a little bit more fun when it's rapid fire. My kid walking to the screen. Yeah. Lab activity. Oh, we're making big changes to the dress code. Okay. Lab activity to isolate internal parasites from animal waste. Fun. No, that's cool though. Being able to do labs right now. The Among Us, going for a walk, and letting them see my world. Yeah, Aaron, you said earlier how they like seeing your house. They like it when we're authentic, right? They like interacting with people through this medium, and it's so interesting. Using humor, the question of the day that's awesome. Fake picking nose. Did you really fake it though, Jeff? Or is that just what you're claiming now? I'm just playing. So no, it's great, and it's fun seeing that. There's so many good responses here. And what you notice, I want to point out, I'll never tell. I want to point out that when I started that, if you look, scroll back up to the top, right before I said hit enter, I typed in start, all caps. And at the end of it, I type stop. If you wanted to use this as some form of assessment, that would be a way so that as you're going back through the chat, you can see exactly where the waterfall starts and stops. It makes it very clear and it's not as messy that way. So you'd say start, type it in, give them 10 seconds or whatever to hit enter, and then hit stop or type it in, and then you discuss it and you go back through. It's a really good strategy. I really like it. Okay, so there's a couple more things. I just wanted to try something out. This is the easy response one. So December 2nd, we are going to have another meeting, and there's different things that we could talk about. One thing that I wanted to get to this meeting, but I knew I wouldn't have enough time for, was to have people share successes that they're having. And we have one of two things that we can focus on. One would be reviewing and sharing strategies that people have found success with online. Or the other is reviewing and sharing Canvas classroom organization and management, showing how we're organizing our Canvas modules and things, for instance. So let's just see informally, through kind of one of the strategies I said, what you guys think. If you would rather review and share strategies with people that you found online, I want you to type a 1. If you would rather review and share Canvas classroom organization and management, I'd like for you to type a 2. 1 for review and share online synchronous classes strategy, and 2 for reviewing and sharing Canvas classroom organization and management. Okay. Got lots of responses. So what we can see here is that this works great for informal or kind of landslide polls. It's very quick. I do it often, and I can see if there's a very strong preference for one thing. In this case, we're talking about, it seems very clear that it's 1. There's some 2s, but it's definitely 1. I've had a couple times where I've had to stop and count it out. Smaller classes, that's okay, but otherwise, if it was very close, I'd just go to Menti, make a quick poll, give you guys a link, and we would do it that way. So it sounds like we're going to be doing that. Okay. Couple more things. We're almost done. You guys doing okay? Okay. So I wanted to give a SurveyMonkey. This is cool. Here's another one. I actually discovered and came up with this idea when I was talking to Monique and Jessica. What we realized is that we needed a tool for just some like anonymous surveys. And I realized that if we simply went to SurveyMonkey, you could create a quick survey and get immediate anonymous feedback. So let me get the link and put it in the chat. You don't have to do this right now, but I wanted to kind of show it. So I put a link in the chat. I'd have students click on it. And maybe if we're talking about something that's like personal experiences, I want people to share anonymous personal experiences or share how they feel on what could be a political topic. And then I wanted to be able to share those responses to the class without making the student feel judged by either me or classmates. There's now a form that they could simply do to fill out, and I can see the responses immediately. I could show more about how to create this and how you can get immediate responses. If you're unsure, just let me know. But I'm going to keep moving forward here in a moment. I just want to let you guys know that I'm happy to meet after this or another time and help out with that. But if you guys wanted to respond to that, it would help me. Yeah, embarrassing. That's why we came up with it. We were talking about health too and embarrassing questions. And Monique wasn't sure how to, like, we weren't sure how we could do that easily, you know, because it's so different from what we've had to do before. And this is what we came up with. So already, like if I'm looking at this, I can look and I can see I have at least about 5 responses, and people are looking to try the chat techniques, waterfall questions, the lateral thinking puzzles. Yeah, there's some other questions. Someone was asking, for example, how to get kids to not only respond privately. I haven't tried to push that too much yet. My focus right now is just trying to make sure that students are responding and engaging. But I have said a couple times, I'm starting to move towards it of if you respond publicly and let other people see what you're saying, it helps the class out and helps me out as a teacher. And that way people that feel a little more comfortable with it, just they weren't sure, have a little more incentive to respond publicly. Okay. Success stories, other ideas from other sources, totally. And it sounds like we're going to have some good sharing potentially next time. Okay. So the key takeaways from today, this is the final part. I want to remind us all kind of like what I want us to take away from this, that classroom success is absolutely possible in this format. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry of people that create entire communities based on certain topics through this exact format with even less tools than we have now. And we can adjust our strategies to reach what most students are accustomed to. A lot of students are engaged with it. When I've pulled students, the majority of them have experienced this stuff or regularly experience it and like seek it out and do it on their own time. And there are many strategies for student engagement and many more to discover and learn. And it sounds like we're going to be working on that. So today, my goal was that when you guys break off for your PLTs, I had two questions that would be good as a debrief. The first one was, what's one strategy that you want to try based off of what we talked about here? And secondly, how can these strategies be adjusted for your content and expertise? I can watch someone teach like a video game and I immediately know how I can do it in English, but it's tough for me to be able to feel that same way about other content areas. So just talk and like be like, how is this going to work with a single video presenter, a stream, and a chat? How can you make that work for your content area? And next meeting, it sounds like we'll be able to share successes, failures, and new strategies. I encourage everyone to try one strategy from today. Any final questions or thoughts or anything else that's worth talking about? The survey would help me if you guys haven't done that. But thank you so much, everybody. I was getting a little nervous before this. So thank you. Cool. So Steve, you want to, I don't know, are we good for PLTs then?
Yeah, I think we're ready to roll if those PLTs had meetings scheduled for today. I know Ryan had one quick announcement about some things for like a toolbox for conferences if staff need those for parents. So if you want to take that away, I think we're all good to roll.
Can I say actually one more thing real quick? Sorry to interrupt. Just by the way, I wanted to say I'm happy to help out with anything. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or ideas or just want to collaborate or share something with me, I'm happy to hear all this stuff. I'm trying to figure it out too. So just let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions or meet with people after this or this week. Okay. Sorry.
No, thanks, Jack. I really appreciate it. It was really positive and really encouraging. So well done. Hey, I just sent you guys via email a Canvas toolkit, CDL toolkit for parents. The freshman success team, we got together, I think it was last week or the week before, and we're kind of sensing that there's going to be some parents that are going to be seeing grades early next week, and they're going to be like, whoa, you know, I'm really concerned. So the freshman success team, we put together some resources on a one-page, well, it might be a page and a half, but we tried to shrink it on one page just to help the parent kind of navigate finding support for their kid. So feel free to share that as needed. You know, you don't have to get in front of every parent that you meet with, but we just thought it'd be a helpful resource. So let me know if, or anyone on the freshman success team, if you have any questions, just kind of let us know. But yeah, it just talks about how a parent can access student grades, how to support a kid at home through CDL, yeah, technology, help, Wi-Fi, things like that. So just let it be a good resource for you if you need it. So, thank you. All right, I think that's